Good day, everybody. Welcome back to another What's This Then? And today we're going to be asking about Path of Exile 2, the early access to be specific. Now, Path of Exile, ARPG, as you might be aware, developed and published by Grinding Gear Games, a very apt name. And I believe the only other game they've made is Path of Exile 1, which was a massive success, and the second one is already proving to be a massive success. 500,000 concurrent players, 1 million people watching on Twitch on the first day. Crazy stuff. Now, the early access, you can get access to it on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series consoles. The early access just went up yesterday at the time of recording. No, sorry, on the 6th there. But mostly yesterday was like the main time people were playing it. Now you can pick this one up for $30 or in pounds. They've just done a direct conversion, which is pretty interesting. You can pick it up for £23.93. Now there are different supporter bundles, but that is the cheapest one that you can buy that will get you into the early access, because the game will be free to play whenever it's fully out. However, you can it's a paid early access to get into it now, and I believe the early access is going to be lasting around 6 months, but that's probably a bit optimistic, and I would expect probably somewhere in between 6 months and a year. Just if we're, to be a little bit pessimistic about that launch date. Early access usually doesn't go quite as they plan, usually for the most part. Now, just to read you a little bit about the premise from the Steam page here itself, Path of Exile 2 is a next-generation free-to-play action RPG from Grinding Gear Games, featuring co-op for up to 6 players. Interesting little factoid there. Set years after the original Path of Exile, you will return to the dark world of Redeyes and seek to end the corruption that is spreading. Pretty simple. Sets the stage. Now, so yeah, the whole 6 players thing, I don't believe it was like that in the first one. I didn't play too much of Path of Exile 1. Definitely under 100 hours, but maybe close to there. Which is basically nothing when it comes to these sorts of games, so I'm not really going to be looking at this much from a comparison standpoint, other than just what I know for 100% to be truly different. So I'll mostly be looking at this from a kind of newcomer's perspective, or more of a in a bubble perspective. But yeah, let's have a look at the options menu here. The first game, pretty good. It was aesthetically very pleasing, but it wasn't the craziest visually, whereas this game is looking really quite nice, has to be said. It runs really well for me as well, but let's just take a quick look through the graphic settings and just sort of the general settings. So we are in DirectX 12. Pretty much everything's moving that way. Honestly, I haven't had too much need to change any of these settings from what it's sort of set by default, to be honest. But graphic settings, you've got plenty of options here. You got your texture quality, lighting, sun, shadow quality, all sorts of different stuff. Bloom levels, advanced settings. You got your NVIDIA reflex, cap your FPS, set a target frame rate. You can actually set up performance metrics, so you can see your FPS and all that sort of stuff. You can see it in the top right here now. Game settings, this is where you can do stuff for disabling tutorials, auto-equip stuff when you pick up, set a key for actually picking things up, set an item filter so that you only see certain things, and I believe this was the same as in the first game, where you can actually download a filter file, or make your own, I guess, and it'll, you can sort of customize that to your liking, because, you're going to be picking up gear's going to be dropping, and you're going to be picking it up, so I quite like that. Never messed with it myself, but we go over to the interface. Again, plenty of stuff going on here. Change your language, center the UI, show your local clock if you really want to. If you're that focused into the game. Change how the map is displayed, show ally names, all this sort of stuff. That's for the map specifically. A little bit of screen shake, items, show the sockets, all sorts of stuff, and a big gameplay one here. You can show life bars above you and NPCs and stuff like that. If you're, however, if you are like me and you are playing a minion build as a witch, this could clutter up the screen pretty quickly. Cursor, you can make it bigger or smaller. Change the colors even, because whenever the game gets really crazy, you might want to consider one of these, to be honest. because it can get lost in there pretty easily. And you can have the chat showing up. Me personally, I might mess with this. I don't really like the chat showing up. I don't really play games like this for the huge social aspect of them, so... sound, you can pretty much mess with every sound you'd absolutely want to, which is always nice to see. Especially in early access as well. Input, this is one really cool thing I'm a really big fan of for this game, is that at the beginning of the game you can choose to use mouse click to move around, or you can have it be WASD, and it will auto reassign your hotkeys to work around that. And I'm a big fan of this. However, I'm very tempted to try controller, because I really feel like these games kind of shine with controller. There's not a lot of like precision needing to be done. The only real downside is like inventory management and like going through the menus and stuff, but and gameplay wise, usually I find myself using controller in these sorts of games, but it does say there's full support. The Steam page shows full support, and I've also had a look into this, and yeah, full support for Xbox and PlayStation controllers, I believe, so that's very nice. And you can rebind absolutely everything. And notifications as well, you can just set what notifications you want to see, and there are a lot of them, as you can see. That's cool. Oh, sorry about the cut there. I completely forgot that when you're at this menu, even with the options up, if you hit escape, which I tried to do to close the menu, it just closes the game. No notification at all, just closes. So, that's what just happened. Anyway, let's actually jump into the game itself. So you can see I've got my level 17 witch here. I'm actually into Act 2, but I've just loaded into somewhere in Act 1 just so I can show you that, just if I can avoid showing you, you know, anything too far on into the game. I kind of want to just show you the first act. I feel like that's, that'll really just be enough to show you how the game sort of operates. This is kind of like the first little hub town. If you've played Path of Exile 1, this is extremely familiar. It's almost the exact same setup and how you even get here and all that sort of stuff. So far the game does play like a... In terms of narratively, it does sort of follow the same structure as the first one, almost one-to-one. Just with a massive visual upgrade. I mean, the game looks absolutely gorgeous. I love it. Love the art style, love the aesthetic, just love looking at it. But I'm going to head out here into Clearfell, which is just one of the first sort of areas you get into. I can sort of show you. You can see my minions. I've gone for, like I said, a sort of a minion build here. Now it works very differently as to how it worked in the first game. So you'll see there's a bar here next to my mana called Spirit. Now I'm not sure how many other classes deal with Spirit, but I know the monk does. And I know the witch does. And your minions that are with you all the time like this will actually use spirit instead of mana. And they're passive. They just stay there. You don't have to summon them. You don't have to worry about them like at all. The only thing you can really do is some of them will have like skills you can activate. Like the skeleton archer here has gas arrow, for example. So I can tell him to be like, boom, gas arrow. And it poisons people. But whenever they die, there's a timer that starts, and whenever that timer goes down, then they just get resurrected again. And it's of no cost to me, I don't have to think about it, it just happens. But you're limited to how many skeletons you can have to your spirit bar, because each one of them will cost a certain amount of spirit to keep up. Now so far there hasn't been too much in the way of increasing spirit, but what does happen is that when you level up the skill for the skeleton, they cost less spirit as they level up. So I suppose that's a good way to talk about the skills here. So, if you're familiar with the first game, the way it would have worked is you would have had armor, and you would have put the skill into the armor, or the weapon, into like a slot on it, and then that would have been your skill down here. And then you could have used support gems and all that sort of business. However, in this game, you get an uncut skill gem, you activate it, and then you get to pick from some of the starting skills. And then once you've done that, it'll take you into the skills panel here, and you slot it in one of these, like this one, Unearth, for example. And now that skill can be put down on one of your hotbar, or on one of your hotkeys. It's quite different, It does appear to be limited. I haven't reached the bottom yet. I don't know if this will keep going once I reach there. I imagine this will be a limit. You can't just have all the skills in the world. But it's an interesting, different way of doing things. And then you can also see that there's slots to the sides of them. And that's kind of like your support gems. So, like with the uncut skill gems, you'll get uncut support gems. And the uncut support gems, they kind of work in the same way. You activate it, it'll bring up a menu. You pick a skill that you want a support gem for, and it will show you a tab of support gems that kind of correlate to this skill. Now, it doesn't mean you have to use it with that skill, because you'll just get the gem, and then you can put that gem on any skill. But it's like there's certain support things that are correlated with certain skills. It's weird. It's a little bit interesting. It's definitely different. Definitely different. I think I like it better than the first one so far. It's a little bit more involved, a little bit more to think about. But I feel like the customizability and freedom of expression of your build is going to benefit quite a bit from this. So here I can show you as well. So you can see my skeletal warrior. I've got 2 here, and that reserves 81 spirit to keep 2 of them alive. And that'll take from my spirit bar over here. So I can actually reduce that. 1 goes away, but now I have more spirit to play with, and I can then use that with another skeletal sniper, for example. And that's kind of how the minion system, or the basic minion system, works in this game. You can still spend mana, so I still have Raise Zombie here, for example. However, they're a limited time, and they require a corpse. Which is kind of the opposite way around as to the way it was in the first game. It was the zombies that you kept around that had no timer, and then the skeletons were the ones that you summoned in, and they only lasted for a certain amount of time, for example. So it's interesting. It's definitely switched things up and made me think about the minions a lot more into how it's all going to work. Whereas before, it kind of felt like I was just kind of mindlessly, you know, more minion button. Kind of my way through the game. So you can see here, I've got these 2 corpses, I can hit R. I've got zombies. Cool. So combat-wise, you know, it's an ARPG, it's Path of Exile. Also, at some point I may accidentally refer to this game as Pillars of Eternity, because in my head it goes through a filter of this game is PoE, and then I think Path of Exile, but sometimes my brain will just go to Pillars of Eternity. So that might happen during this video. As you can see, it's very similar to the first one, which is good, you know. A lot of people like the first one, and a lot of people like the second one already, as it turns out. But you got your map, you walk around, you get waypoints, and you can use those to teleport back to town, or to teleport back to here once you go back to town, for example. I would say the hit effects and stuff feel a lot better. There's like the visuals of some of the skills in this game look absolutely fantastic. There's a monk skill that a friend of mine's been using, and it just looks absolutely incredible. Leaves big scorching marks along the ground when it goes and stuff like that. Absolutely fantastic. So far I haven't found anything quite that visually interesting, but then again I also have, like, you know, 15 things running around beating the shit out of everything, so that's fantastic. I mean, that's what I'm here for. Absolutely love necromancy flavor in video games, and I will seek it out. Minion builds, I'm all about it. I got this skill here, there's like bone spikes. You put that over a corpse, or you kill someone with it, and they summon into these cute little skeleton guys, the cute little skeleton dogs. Yeah, it's a dog. But yeah, they're great. Music-wise, for the most part, it's pretty typical kind of stuff, you know, kind of dark and sort of dreary kind of vibes. But occasionally you will get a very good piece of music in this that I really wasn't expecting. There's a particular boss fight that I did that had some absolutely fantastic music. Really was quite incredible. I almost like want to go back and do that boss fight again just to hear the music, or go see if it's available somewhere. And the boss is like chanting and stuff, like in the middle of the fight. Oh, it was incredible. No, I never made it to the end game of the first game. Like, I always just kept switching between characters before I got there. But I never really fought any bosses that were doing that sort of thing. Or that had quite that same presentation. And I had made it like fairly far into the story of the first game. But already the boss fights in this just seem to be a step up from a visual and audio standpoint. And that actually brings me on to one of the big changes, gameplay-wise, that this game's got going on. Is the dodge roll. The fights in this game tend to be a lot faster and more aggressive because all classes have a dodge capability. So the boss fights especially, they're noticeably harder, I would say. I don't really remember dying to too many bosses going through the base game of the first game, but in this one, there's already been several bosses that have taken numerous attempts, which has been really quite interesting. Like, I've actually had to like learn boss patterns and stuff, you know, just basically going through the game, and that's pretty fantastic. Yeah, you can see the combat's just very visceral. Everything just feels good to do. Looks great, sounds great, all that sort of stuff. Let's take a look at the inventory screen. You saw a brief look at this. Again, if you're familiar with the first game, this is pretty much identical. Same slots, although I think this is different. These charms, I don't believe these were in the first one at all. Just some like conditional effects and stuff. Conditional items, so like this one, for example, when I get stunned, it just unstuns me. It also seems to have charges, which I've only just noticed, so that's interesting. So I'm not sure how this system works yet. I haven't really delved too deep into that. But you've still got your like orbs of transmutation, you know, you've got your scrolls of wisdom, all very familiar stuff. However, if you're seeing this little gold thing down here, you might be like, huh? Because the first Path of Exile was pretty well known for not having a gold system, and it was all based on a barter system of these like scrolls of wisdoms, these orbs, you know, these just different upgrade materials that were used to buy things essentially from other players or even in game and stuff. But now they just kind of have this like gold system that's used, from what I can tell, for more basic things, and then I would imagine the higher end things are still going to be using the sort of barter system, I would have to guess. But it's a little bit interesting to see them go away from that. I'm wondering if it's a new player thing, you know, just make the early or the basic sort of transactional concepts in this game just make a bit more sense for most people. Because I could see a world where a new player goes into the first game and just doesn't really get it at first and kind of doesn't interact with it, because that can be quite a common thing, where if a player doesn't really understand something, it can be very easily for them to just ignore it if the game isn't forcing them to use it. And it's a real shame to have that entire aspect of the game just sort of ignored. So I would have to guess that's why they've done this. Yes, let's jump on over into the Grellwood here. Now in terms of how many acts they've got, I believe it's 3 acts they've got in the game at the moment. It took me about 7 or 8 hours to get through the first act. Once you do that, I believe there is a harder difficulty to go through them again. And then once you beat that, there is, I believe, a taste of the end game systems, or it might even be a full end game, I'm not even too sure. But you can grind, you know. You can really get grinded in this right now. Oh, 1 second, let me take a drink. Because it's been a hot minute since I've uploaded a little video there. Life's just been a little bit crazy, so my throat's getting used to doing this again. But yeah, plenty of content in the base game already. I believe 6 classes in the base game as well, including the new Mercenary, I believe is the new one. All about like automatic crossbows and stuff, which I'm actually very interested in trying. I think I'll be giving that my next run through as that character. Now in terms of monetization, I haven't actually looked at this yet, but shop. Yeah, so this is kind of like basic right now because it's just a supporter pack thing. So just different, you know, bundles that you can buy. So early access supporter packs, you know, you can buy those. I believe I have some currency here because I bought the basic pack to get into the early access. But Path of Exile 1 was pretty well renowned for being an incredibly fair live service, free-to-play game with microtransactions that literally only affect visuals and nothing else. And that's pretty great to see. The entire time I was playing the first game, I did not interact or feel any need to interact with the cosmetics at all, because the armors in the game, in the base game, or sorry, just in the game normally that you can acquire for free, were just pretty cool in and of themselves. You know, the paid stuff is like really fantastical, really like crazy over the top kind of stuff. So I just never really felt the need. You know, obviously when you go to the hub, you'll see other people running around in them because, you know, FOMO and all that. They gotta get you somehow. Which I've always kind of hated. It did get me at some point. You know, it's hard not to give in to FOMO sometimes, but it is what it is. You know, whenever it comes to this game does it pretty damn well, to be fair. Probably one of the best live service sort of business models. I can't think of many more that I would say are considerably better. I would say maybe Deep Rock Galactic and probably Helldivers. Helldivers 2, to be honest. The only game I've seen with like those in-game microtransactions, and I've actually felt like the word micro meant something. Like you pay like £2 or something and you get like enough currency to like buy a new skin or whatever. Even though that game was like you paid for that game fully, it wasn't free to play or anything, but still, you know, if you're gonna have this live service thing, then I prefer the prices to actually reflect the term microtransaction. But this game does it pretty damn well. Story-wise, it's ARPG story. I mean, you can go through the entire game and skip it, and you probably won't have missed very much. I mean, a lot of players probably are just going to mash through the story. The voice acting's great, though. If you're familiar at all with Total War Warhammer and Mr. Carl Franz, you may recognize a voice actor or two in there. And if it's not him, it sounds fucking dangerously close to him. It was quite jarring to hear at first. It was like, oh my god, there he is. Summon the Electric Count. Like I said, like the story, like you can take it or leave it. It's not mind blowing. You're not going to be sitting here like on the edge of your seat wondering where the narrative is going to take you next. But it's an ARPG. I doubt you're joining for that reason. It is a train ride to get you from cool gear to cool boss. You know. And maybe I'm wrong, you know, obviously the game isn't fully out, I haven't gone through all the acts yet, like maybe the story will just like, they'll just like, I don't know, catch me completely off guard, give me the right hook and just say, hey look, you're actually in for the time of your life right now, shut the hell up. I'll be like, okay, fair enough. But it's sort of, yeah, that's kind of everything I needed to talk about at this one at the minute. In terms of whether it's worth it to buy a bundle to get into it right now, if you are really chomping at the bit, I would say it's worth it. If you don't mind waiting, then I would say it's probably best to wait. The game does have some technical issues at the moment. That's to say nothing of the server issues that are going on at the moment, which I have no doubt will resolve themselves in no time at all. Oh yeah, didn't, of course, sorry, just thought. The passive skill tree, didn't even show you that. Probably one of the most recognizable things about the Path of Exile out there. It's very similar to the first one. There's a lot more funky shapes in here. You know, they've had a bit more fun with it, I feel like. Which is always nice to see. But essentially it works pretty much exactly the same. There is this weapon set passive system where certain skills will only apply to certain weapon sets that you have, because in your inventory you can see you have 2 tabs for weapons. So you can set certain skills in there to only apply to certain sets. I haven't really delved too much into this. I don't know how useful it'll be, but I imagine it'll, you know, when the build guide makers come out and get in here, you know, they'll probably say it's the greatest thing ever. And if you ignore it, you're an idiot. And I'll just be like, okay, fair enough. But right now, I'm not really touching it because I haven't really found too much use for it yet. But that could change. Again, first impressions. This is just as I'm seeing it and what I'm thinking about it, essentially. But yeah, in terms of is it worth it? Like I said, if you're chomping at the bit, yeah, I'd say go ahead, pull the trigger. But I have had crashes. I have had loading screen desyncs where I'm just endlessly in the loading screen. I've had to close the game. So it is not without its fair share of technical problems at the moment, but like I said, I imagine those will ease themselves off pretty quickly, especially the network stuff. But the crashes can be a bit annoying because they just tend to happen at pretty random times, like you'll just fight an enemy, it'll explode, and game closes. So I'm not really too sure what's causing that. Could be a graphical setting, but I imagine the updates are probably going to come out hot and heavy on this one. But yeah, I'll wrap it up there. This has been Path of Exile 2's early access. I'll probably do another follow-up video whenever the game actually fully comes out and sort of do a comparison as to how the game's sort of shaping up from there, if there's been any major changes, but yeah, I'm liking this one. I'm liking this one so far. I liked Path of Exile 1, and I'm liking Path of Exile 2. Gonna try some of the other classes and yeah, see how it goes. Hopefully gonna be doing another video soon on maybe Marvel Rivals or the new Indiana Jones game. I've been hearing some good stuff about from those doing that silly early access thing that I hate, where you pay to play it 3 days early. But yeah, apologies about the delay between the videos and stuff. It's just, yeah, life crazy at the moment, so just the way it is. I'll try to get some more streams in when I can as well, so yeah, thanks for watching. I shall catch you on the next one. Goodbye.